Actually on AyinBase 18 on top, but it's smack in the middle of a principle. This is, so to speak, towards the end of the whole discussion, in which it's brought out that oir, in essence, in whatever situation, whatever madregi it's found, it has the quality of oir atzmi, which means it remains connected to the source and remains representative of the source. And nevertheless, in this hispashtos oil, there could be many madrigas, and in general, that madrigas are expressed in these three gimel piyom kadosh, the 3 times kadosh, each one representing a different madriga in the oil. Although all madrigas have the quality of oil atzmi. And the first madriga that he discusses over here, this is where we're in the middle, is madriga the way the oil is an atzilus. We discussed this a little bit. What is the, so to speak, the definition of atzilus? Again, we have to first get into the topic. The principle that oir is oir atzmi. What does that mean? Although this is in the middle, the whole principle of oir not to be confused with oir as we know it physically, light that extends and illuminates an area. Light, in essence, is reflective of its source. That's what light is. As a matter of fact, you've been explaining many times that the principle that the shemesh illuminates its environment is not by virtue of the light reaching the earth, by virtue of the sun being bright. It's a reflection of the presence of the sun. The word light does not represent illumination. The light represents a presentation, a presence. The presence of the moyer is in the form of light. And the etzem is in the form of light. Like in the case of a person owning a home, this is impossible. That won't help. You have to sit down over here. principle that a person owns a home, we discussed it many times, is an essential element of the human being. Which means that when a person owns the home and he enters the home, some kind of a quality is emanating, is generating from the person into the home. There's a human quality that is imbued into the home as a result of the person owning it and the person being present in it. This oir is not something that is removed, is come forth, is generated by the person and come into the home. It is not generated. This is the person. But it is the oil of the person rather than the essential presence of the person. What is the oil of the person means? The oil means what is the effect of a human being present. So this oil is clearly, this is part of the essence. It is there by the fact that there is an essence, the essence. But then there's madrigas in this, where it says it's slabish and keli. We demonstrated the principle of mislabish and keli on the simplest level, in the fact that there are furnishings in the house. These furnishings are reflective of the human being. That there is a human being here. The furnishing themselves are just structures. But the oir, the human oir, is mislabesh in these structures. This is the principle of oir mislabesh and keli. How do you identify the fact that this is a human home? Not merely by the four walls, which we discussed also, but a human is identified by certain human amenities. And in these amenities is actually reflected the human quality. Like we said, a human being needs a chair. It reflected in having all the conveniences of a chair and a table, a bookcase, and so forth. And so the important thing to recognize is that even after that there is a whole structure, what the structure stands for is the oil that it reflects, it reflects, rather than its structure. Which means, as we said, you come into a home and you see a table, you see the human element of the table rather than the structural element of the table. This is the pshat oir b'keli. This inyan of oil bikeli exists at many different levels. The primary level, the top level is what's called Atzilus. This is the first level where oil can be mislavish in keli. So the first principle that we discuss in this is right on top of that line, that because it's mislabish in the keli, the oil actually acquires the functionality of the keli. Although the oil in essence is much superior to that functionality. But because it's mislapshus in the keli, it acquires the functionality of the keli, so that you begin to identify the quality of the oil by the functionality of the keli. It is still oil. This is the important thing. It's still oil, meaning that it is still an essential human quality. Like we said, no matter how convenient a chair is, or how convenient a table is, you will not have an animal appreciate the table and the chairs because it's convenient. It's exclusively a human experience, human appreciation. Although you have reduced it to a physical experience. It's still essentially the oil hanefesh. Except that here you took the oil hanefesh of the human being and limited it and translated it in a keli. And now it is correct to say that one of the things of the oil hanefesh is of the human being is that he sits on a chair in front of a table. And it is not to be excluding the inyan that, yes, there is a convenience involved. And we discussed it way back when, convenience is also a human thing. Because of the human quality of all the meters that a person has, all the way down to malchus, convenience is clearly a human person, a human thing. And that's why we say that if a person chooses to stand and eat rather than sit by a table or walk, he can do that too. But he is not expressing his human qualities.
I'm not sure I'm catching this point about convenience. The person feels it's more convenient to walk and eat.
No, there's no such thing. No.
Eating on the run. I mean.
Eating on the run is not convenience. It's being pressed for time.
Yeah. Okay. So they imagine that it's convenient, but it's not.
No, they don't imagine it's convenient. They can't afford the time, so it's convenient for them in terms of not having to dedicate time to it, not having to live like a human being. That's essentially what it is.
But convenience per se is human.
Convenience per se, that I don't have to hold a cup in my hand all the time. I can stand there until I need to take a sip. That is a human quality.
Oh, and you might have thought it's just a practical, sort of physical arrangement.
Right.
What makes it more human than?
What?
What makes it more human than an animal? This does things for his comfortability.
An animal does not have convenience concept. Whichever way it goes, it goes.
Doesn't do things which makes him feel.
No. What?
What does it have to do with cycle convenience? That's the point.
Okay. They'll take it because it's the end of the mind, but they might as well. They'll take it from, piecemeal. You have a loaf of bread. Technically, you can take the loaf of bread and bite it off.
What?
You can bite off the loaf. You understand? This loaf does not represent a meal. It represents a loaf of bread. It's not a serving. It's a presence of bread, not meant for eating, not meant to be standing in the freezer. When the person comes to eat, it has to be presented to him in the form that this is meant to be eaten, not that you have bread. This is the principle of a portion. And even after you have the portion, you take a knife and a fork and you cut it into pieces. So you eat that which is prepared and formed for a bite. That's how a human being is. This is seichel element. Everything is identified first, and then you go for it. Surely a person, it's possible for him to eat otherwise, because a human being encompasses the entire world. He is a malach and he is an animal. So he can choose which level he wants to identify with. But the proper way, I mean, the seichel way is that it's identified. This is the seichel. Seichel is combines the malach with the guf together. He's going to eat, but he's going to eat in a decent manner. Like a malach who doesn't eat, not like an animal that does not regard at all the ruchnius aspect.
What does it have to do with the cup, as I said before?
What?
What does it have to do with the cup? It's convenient not to hold it. I mean, an animal would also enjoy not holding it and put it down. What does it have to do with cycle?
The cup standing on the table is the identical thing. It's standing on the table waiting for me to drink it. It's not water in the faucet. The halacha is, it's a whole shiloh, but they're allowed to drink water, drink it directly from the faucet. Shamet bracha, because you make a bracha, the water is flowing. So to make a bracha, and you drink other water than the ones you made a bracha on.
It's a shaila, or you dafka can't drink from the person?
It's a shaila to which we found a way out. But essentially it's a shaila.
But what is the shaila? I'm sorry, I missed the shaila.
Whether you're allowed to put your mouth to the faucet and drink directly from the water as it comes out.
Okay.
Like a water fountain.
Yeah.
Oh,
A water fountain, like a fountain.
Yeah. I think that when we identified the following principle, I think it was very, very clear. Like we said the other day, that even the Goy confirmed, said, I eat so that I would live. And we thought, hey, this is quite an insight. This is not the natural response. I eat because I'm hungry. This is the response, the body response. I eat so that I would live. This is an intelligent response. And we said that a person goes and grabs a piece of bread, or fish, or meat, whatever it is, or a baguette. You know what a baguette is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what a baguette is? This is a French luxury. I remember the picture. I'm walking down the street and this guy's riding on a bike and holding a long baguette, like a 3-footer, and eating straight out of it. I was like, really taken aback. I mean, it's such an ugly picture.
It was a beautiful picture of a little boy in France bringing home a bag with a big baguette in it. It's beautiful. No, he's not eating it. He just has this pride in his face that he's.
That's
doing
why.
what
That's
his
why.
mother
No problem with that.
wanted.
No problem with that.
It's beautiful.
No problem. So I said that it's definitely within human capacity to eat on the run. And here is the difference. When he eats on the run, he's eating because he's hungry. When he sits and eats by the table, he's eating because he wants to live. Different sense of human experience. He has an element of respect for the human life, and this is why he is eating. He will eat in a respectful manner. All right. All this was to give us a kind of an insight, a handle on the principle of oir being mislabish in a keli. We're on top of page AyinBase 18.
And with respect to the 3 kadoshes, this is the lowest?
We don't know yet.
Ayin?
We don't know yet.
Don't know.
We're trying to identify different levels in oir. So one level that we're identifying in oil is when oil is mislabish in a keli. With mislabish in a keli, this is important to understand what the Rebbe is saying here. Let's go back actually to the end of the previous page, the very last words. V'hainu she'akeli poil beho'oir, which means that the keli affects in the oil, leehiyot kifiyefin hakeli, that the oil should be kifiyefin hakeli, should be according to the way the keli is. Upeil pa'ulas hakeli, and the oil is actually accomplishing the function of the keli. in terms of our motion, let's elaborate a little bit. I eat so that I would live. Life is a constant. Life is a neshama thing. But then there is that level of life that is experienced in a goof, that is mislavish in a goof, and has an effect on the body. That life needs to be preserved, needs to be maintained. That is not a constant, and that is not an automatic thing. The neshama in the goof needs to be nourished in order to be able to hold on to the life of that the neshama gives. In other words, when you say I live so that I would live, I eat so that I would live, doesn't mean so that the neshama should live. It means that the goof should live. But life, the definition of life per se, this is what he said. If you eat so because I'm hungry, that's a purely a goof statement. But I should eat so that I would live. This is a combination of neshama and goof. That life element is a life element at the level of the goof. But goof is not life. But goof is capable of experiencing life at its level. So this is what the Rebbe is saying. That when the oil is mislabish in a keli, let's take it into our arena. He eats so that he would live. The oil hanefesh, the oil hanefesh, if it say, does not know that there's such thing as eating, or that eating is a necessity to the perpetuation of this life. Because life is a neshama reality. When this oil comes to the level where he recognizes, no, I have to eat in order to live. That is only when the oil is in a cave. And then he eats to maintain this life element, this oil. Even though he is eating, which is a physical action. Therefore the oil, so to speak, is conforming to the physical situation, physical reality. But yet, there is the oil element remaining. Even though he's conforming to the physical reality, that here in this group, you cannot live without eating. But he recognizes that it's not the eating that's going to give me that I'm looking for. It's the life element that I'm looking for. Which means that even though it's mislabish and ekeli, it remains oir. Do you follow what I'm saying? It remains oir. It doesn't transform into a body. It remains an nefesh, oir. But this oir is now at a level that it's, so to speak, a compromised level. It's an oil that needs to be maintained by eating.
Amen.
It's not the purity of oil itself that does not need that kind of support. Here it is both. That's meant oil mislavish in the keli. It needs a support, but it remains oil. And this is why it's a phenomenal statement. I eat so that I would live. So let's take it. Okay, this is an excellent lesson, element to focus in and to draw from. But the same thing is in the simplest masham that we had. You eat at a table. Even though eating per se is a physical action. And from that perspective, yes, you can eat directly from the baguette. Seichel per se, please understand, Seichel per se has nothing to do with eating. Seichel understands life, understands purpose, neshama, mitzvahs. Doesn't understand eating. In order to facilitate the activity, the neshama activity in the guf, Seichel translates neshama activity on the guf level. Neshama activity, again, neshama activity in a human being is the sense, the respect of what a human being is. And then he is mislavish that principle in a keli. What's a keli? To sit on one place and eat from a plate with a fork and knife. As an example. Or as we said, he does not eat from a whole loaf, he eats from a slice. This is the element where the oil hanefesh is actually imbued and actually limited to a physical definition. The keli. What is the keli? The keli, like I said before, what is a portion? A portion is that which is designated for eating. Not that there is food, but designated for, per se, for eating. This is the seichel translating the shoma element in the Gashmis. Let me carry this through to the point what the Rebbe is saying. The oil becomes kfiyoy from hakeli. Pardon me. The oil becomes like the keli. The oil then understands the keli. This is the oil hanefesh, oil haseichel. All of a sudden, this oil haseichel understands what it means to eat. What does it come to that? This is what he slaps. Not only does he understand it, but poil pulas hakeli, he actually acts along with the keli. Not only is he allowed the keli to act on its own, but he actually is involved in it. Poil pulas hakeli.
What is this step that he actually acts along with it in the mantra? picking up the spoon?
Yeah, the whole thing. Is, while he is eating, there is the oyer haseichel involved.
The Oyer HaSeichel would go away, he would just stick his food in the plate. Stick his face in the plate.
That's right, absolutely. See, so we have this a very base level of emotion. The same is true at the level where you take a pencil and you write advar seichel. When you write advar seichel, you are not, the hand is not writing advar seichel. The hand is writing a letter. But what is enabling the hand to write the letter? It is the seichel that ultimately inspires the whole writing. This is again mislabish in the king. He acts according to the king. As we shall see, this in contrast to where the person speaks, which is also speaking with letters, but in speech he can concentrate on the idea rather than on the letters or on the words. Above that, in his machshava, in his thought, he doesn't even concentrate on the words, even though there are words. He is in full focus on the idea itself.
In these examples, it's not the hand acting in accordance with the light. Why are we saying the light is acting in accordance with the vessel? The hand forms the letters that are appropriate to the light. No?
Are you saying that there's less hislapshus at the level of dibur and still less at the level of machshava?
Right. Well, yes, machshava, the keli is less pronounced. In dibur, the keli is very much pronounced. In writing, it is exclusively the keli. Because once you write it, it becomes a separate entity from the oil. And anybody can take your writing and interpret it whichever way they want. And in order to get the oil to it, you have to labor to see what was intended with this writing. So, it is not correct to say that the hand is writing according to the intent in your mind. Because in order to write, you have to direct the hand, not only to write a hey, but here is how you write a hey. The hand does not know that. In the hand, it's all called koyach hatnuah. Not hatnuah, the ability to move the hand around. That is the level of the hand. Koyach haksiva is already a combination of tnuah and seichel.
So that's to say that it's the seichel is understanding the limitations of the hand and acting appropriately for that koyach.
Right. Seichel is mislabish at the level that this seichel should be produced at that level. Even while See, this is the important thing that we're saying. Even while he is involved in writing simple letters, there is the Oyer HaSeichel that is illuminating, that is motivating this writing. Which means that the Seichel has been reduced to this level. Bottom Islam. It is still Seichel HaNefesh. And essentially this is still the truth of the Nefesh, this still is Oyer Atzmi. But it's a completely different level.
The light understands the vessel. The vessel doesn't really understand the light.
We shall see about that.
Okay.
Okay, again, I just want to emphasize the important point over here is that the oil is mislabish in the keli and poil pulas hakeli affects the pu'ula of the keli while remaining oil. It's not the keli that's doing it, it's the oil that's doing it through the keli. Okay, here's the flip side of this. And similarly, Islapshus means a double relationship. Both ways. Ha'oir poil behakeli. The oil actually has an effect upon the keli. The same way as we say the keli has an effect on the oil. So the oil is reduced to the level where it knows how to produce itself at the keli level. Similarly, the oil has a pula and the keli itself. The keli is totally devoid of any oil, of any light, of any life. But the oil is poil in the keli. What does that mean? Shehakeli mizdachacho. The keli is purified, refined. Mizdachacho means refined. Adei haislapshus ha'oil bo. As a result in the effect of the oil being mislabish in the keli. The keli is refined by it as a result. This is the principle. This is the principle where when you go be trained in producing music. Producing music, or art for the same matter, but music in particular, although the hand is always under control of the brain, but there's a certain refinement in the hand where the hand is almost automatically acting according to the sense in the brain. In art, what I've noticed, not an expert, but what I've noticed is in art there are different levels, different degrees to what extent the hand is involved. There's when you make a line, it's a line made by the hand. But then there is shading. When you make shading is not the action of the hand. In order to make shading, the hand has to be floating, hardly touching the paper. I have an artist over here, at the risk of being contradicted. The hand then is actually living at the seichel level, almost. This is the difference when you make a sketch. A sketch is straight a hand function. You have to, I'm sure you have to have the idea, but the idea is translated on the hand. You make this line and that line. Each line is a line. But when you're actually painting, there it's a different thing. Then you have to reproduce the sense of this picture, rather than the picture itself. The shading and the different colors. The different colors are not just coloring. It is reflective of the life element in this picture. And there, the hand actually has to be refined. This is something which requires years of training and and actually training, not just training on the art level, but refining the hand. In other words,
why do they need on this particular aspect more coming from the hand itself than from the cycle?
because I'm just going to give you the following illustration. Okay, again, I have an artist here, and I stand the risk of being contradicted. You're an artist, or a fine pianist, or a violinist. Violin has to sense the strength, and the extent to which he holds the strand, stronger or weaker. It's a complete change in the production, not a different note, a different production. Very subtle messages. This is a good player, or anybody can reproduce a song. But to bring a song in a living manner, that already have to live a living thing. I want to propose the following test. A fine artist, literally a fine artist, or a fine musician, send him off to be a carpenter for a half a year. Not for a half a year, for one day. And after they let him pick up his art again. It'll be a whole transformation. Because the coarseness
In what
of taking,
direction?
huh?
A transformation in what direction?
He will not be able to relate to the refinement of the art or the music that he has to produce until he retrained himself.
Well, because he was a carpenter for a day.
Because he was a carpenter for a day. A carpenter means you have to take a hammer and bang. He's not used to that. It's the opposite of the action of art.
You lose the sensitivity.
Loses sensitivity. On the other hand, a fine artist, if you tell him, bang this nail, he doesn't know how to do it. He will like, come on, get in there. He doesn't go, doesn't listen.
Are we talking here, let's say a musician executes music that's written on a paper. So there's a difference between just playing the notes as if you were practicing and then giving into the execution all your soul and all your heart so that you reach the essential spirit of the music, which is also another idea is that when you have several musicians together,
They have to coordinate.
and sometimes it's together and sometimes it's not. I mean, but when it is together, it's absolute. It's the absolute
Right. This is what this guy is doing, right? What are you doing there?
So in this mashal, the hand is the keli.
This is the keli, right? And it's an amazing thing that
and it gets refined, but you're showing how it gets refined in certain ways.
it gets refined. Exactly, the keli gets refined.
So this implies that the quality or degree of the oyer that's in the hand that draws is different from the hand that bangs nails.
Do again, I missed a word. That's important.
It implies that since, in other words, since the degree of refinement of the keli is different, it implies that there's a different level or some sort of difference in the oyer, or else the hislavshus of the oyer, in the hand that draws versus the hand that bangs.
No, we we are focusing on two separate aspects in Islapshus. In Islapshus, there is a dual relationship. The oil becomes like the keli, and the keli becomes like the oil. Real Islapshus means both ways.
So what's the difference then that's going on between, because also the hand that bangs nails has an oyer that's mislavish in it, right? Otherwise it wouldn't bang nails. There is some sort of oyer in there.
Right.
So what's the difference?
One second. Now we have to think when we talk about that. The oyer in banging a nail is in creating a keli, not representing the oyer in the keli. Which is like we said.
Using the word keli differently.
Yeah, like we said, on the assembly line there is also oil, but it's virtually lost. Because here you are completely on the keli level.
Then the difference is that the carpenter is creating a physical keli, and the musician is creating music.
Right.
There's a difference between the ultimate products.
Right. And there, again, the same way, there is a difference between a carpenter and a carpenter. The carpenter who only understands the physicality, or he actually builds. I said he only bangs a nail into a board, or he creates a table. And there's a sense of what he's doing. There are different qualities, different levels.
And in these different levels, the difference in his lashus is in both the oyer and the hand that does it.
Right. This is what hislapshus means. Hislapshus means that the oil is affected by the keli. In other words, it's not merely the seichel directs the hand to do it, and the hand does it on its own. No, the seichel is mislabish in the keli, and it gives the keli its sense, and then the keli becomes misnachich as a result, and the keli is able to adjust to that sense.
Interesting relationship.
Now that we've come almost to the end of this year, I know that these things are extremely time consuming, but here's the thing that we have to understand. This is going to be a little bit more difficult. The reason the keli is able to accept the oil, the reason the keli, the hand, can accept the seichel, It's true, the seichel is directing the hand. But the reason that there could be this kind of a symbiosis, that kind of a correlationship, is due to the fact that it's one neshama that's mislavish in the seichel and in the hand. And the rotzin hanefesh, that makes us understand the seichel, that rotzin hanefesh is mislavish in the hand that makes it able to execute the seichel.
It's one seichel that's dressed in, it's one nefesh that's dressed in the seichel and in the hand.
It's not only because of the one element of the nefesh, that it's one nefesh. The point is that the higher element of the nefesh, what's called life itself, is present in the hand and in the seichel.
So here, any difference between nefesh of a kiss, nefesh of Bahamas is null. It's
No,
one life.
we're not saying that. But the point is there is a nefesh element in the hand, just as there is in the seichel.
The point is the commonality. Is the commonality?
No, not commonality. The reason a seichel functions is because there's a rotzon nefesh. Higher than seichel. Seichel itself is based on rotzon. I'm not going there right now, but that is the truth. We all understand that seichel functions only in a living human being. That life is present everywhere. The great phenomenon in this is that as a result of this, the hand can sense the seichel, or the seichel can sense the hand, which is what's called oil behislapshut. That's on a lower level of the oil, but it's a phenomenal thing.
And the nimshal for all of this is what? We're giving these mishalim for a nimshal. The nimshal is the hispashtus of oil.
Oil is lavish and kelim datzilus.
This is all about oil that's slavish and kelim of atzilus.
Right. Well, we'll see what the nimshal is, but this is I'm sort of giving it a jump ahead, so we should have a sense. He's saying that there are three levels of oil. Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. All three levels are Kodesh. Because all three levels are representing oil Etza Atzmi. Then that same oil is mislavish in the kiyah. But mislavish in the kiyah doesn't remain the same kedusha as it is when it is unto itself. But it remains oil. This is what the emphasis is. It remains oil.
And it remains oil atzmi.
And it remains oil atzmi. There is not a single action in a human being, no matter at what level, that he is acting like the hammer in the hand. The hammer bangs ultimately the hammer is one bangs in the nail. So it's the hand that's banging in the nail. The hand and the hammer are totally different levels. Like we said, to the extent that the hand are working on the assembly level or line, or the hand working in a group fashion to create a final product is a different hand.
Can we say that the sensitivity on the artist's hand, on the kaila, is like now becomes like instinct?
Is what?
Is now becoming like instinct. Instinctively he senses the.
What is Shlomo's question?
Whether there the hand is similar to the instinct of an animal instinct. You see, I was thinking as I was talking, this I once saw also on one of these clips an elephant holding a crayon in its snoot, right? And drawing a picture of an elephant. Not the whole thing, but just one aspect. From a picture. Drawing a picture from a
Goes
picture.
way beyond the bird skiing.
Way beyond the bird skiing. But we have to, okay, all of these things serve to confuse us. But
not way beyond.
there is not an element, okay. He drew it correctly. It's an amazing thing. He was drawing a drawing. He was not drawing a living anything.
He had no idea of what it represented. No idea.
No, I'm saying, right. He was drawing a drawing. That's called instinct.
It was like the dog that counts to 5.
Right. That's called instinct. There's a line here, make a line here. And yes, it speaks that the animal is also can see certain things, you know. But what does he see? He sees lines.
Why is he copying it?
He was trained to.
He was trained to, and copying by an animal is a very common thing. He sees a human being doing, he wants a copy.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Oh, that's a very common thing.
Like a dog standing on 2 feet.
Right.
And what's the hand feeling when he chooses the strings? The hand, not the oil of the hand. What's his sensitivity?
I'm saying, the oil hanefesh, the rotzen hanefesh is mislavish in the entire human being. In music, there are many different aspects in the music. There's the sound. There's the effect that it has. So ultimately, music is the language of the nefesh. It's not just the sound. This is why they say, when music, you're listening to the nefesh, you're not listening to the sound. And that element, the hand also has a relationship to.
And that what?
That element, the hand also relates to.
So the hand has an element of nefesh.
Absolutely. Rotzin HaNefesh is mislavish in the entire person equally.
So when we say that a person has a certain chush, means to say that his nefesh is more sensitive to his nefesh. He has a chush of tziva, a chush of dibber, whatever we title a person.
That this particular aspect of the nefesh is more begilui by him than by somebody else.
And a human being doesn't have instinct.
Human being does not have instinct. A human being, okay, that's what the question that he asked me the other day. In essence, a human being does not have instinct. He has instinct, but immediately when he has an instinct in him, he understands what the instinct is about. Like we said, I said, you're walking and you see a wall in front of you. You're not going to walk into the wall. You're going to walk around it. Lahavel, the dog, also will walk around it. There will be an inherent difference in you seeing the wall and in the dog seeing the wall. The dog seeing the wall and you will seeing a house. You will never say, I was walking and I had to go around because there was a wall in front of me. So the reason is, in other words, this seichel encompasses the instinct level. This is the slapshus oil bekeli. The keli, this is on the instinctive level. But the person sees it as a keli to the oil, rather than the keli stripped of the oil.
Now we're throwing now what is dachas hakayla means. You shouldn't get confused that it's the kaila itself is also the oil.
Dachas hakeli is also the oil, but not oil seichel. This is the oil hanefesh. This is the berotzen hanefesh. That's what I said before. Because it's a living keli. And it has the rotzen hanefesh. And the rotzen, this is the nefesh itself.
You showed that rotzen is like the yatzim ma'or. That's the mashal.
Right. Rotzen is right. I mean, to be more precise is is going to be time or so. But yes, the rotzen is the etzem the dog. Like we said many times, and the shom is mislabish in the group, and the person is alive. The principle of life is that I want to live. This is how life is mislabish in the group. This is what his slapshus is. This is the gili on that.
The Moidani.
The Moidani.
What happened there to get the Modayani? How do we all of a sudden get the Modayani?
The wanting to live.
Oh. Okay. Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes.
This is also to say in the Nimshal that the Etzem is involved in every far-flung element of the Bria. Is that true?
Well, the Etzem is involved in the form of the Oyer Atzmi.
The Oyer Atzmi. The Oyer Atzmi is like the Rutzen.
Right.
There's nothing that happens that the Rutzen isn't involved in, and there's nothing that happens that the Oyer Atzmi is not involved in.
Right. All right.
Hey,
What-
listen to
What are we up to? Okay. Have a great day. Just one.